I felt very nurtured and protected by working with Neil. I had a sense that he was a guy who knew so much deep in his heart about not just character and story, the way character and story are inextricably intertwined in the forward movement of telling a story, but about economy, which was a great experience for me. My own personal method of writing is, in a sense, that I'm an overwriter and then I edit. So the 5 years and 5 drafts of working on the screenplay with Neil, collaborating for the first time with an outsider, was a form of benign, socially interactive editing.
Probably the best thing about being involved in this project has been the opportunity to work with Neil Armfield. He is, his reputation is very well founded. He's an unusual man, and it's taken me quite a while to understand his rhythms, but he's incredibly rewarding to work with. He's a lovely person, which makes working with him pleasurable, in that he's incredibly good-hearted, well-intentioned, and tries to bring out always the best in the people around him.
He's obviously an experienced theatre director. He's done over 150 million plays, and this was his first film, so I knew he was definitely going to be up to the challenge of directing actors and performance. I think he's very good at understanding performance and understanding the rhythms in scenes and rhythms in the sentences, the emotion in sentences, the emotion in the film. I think he's brought an incredible sensitivity to the movie that maybe it was lacking on page.
Our world was so very complete.
There are major differences of directing for stage and directing for cinema. Fundamentally, you can't make decisions on how people are going to stand or behave until you're actually in a location, because it is all about what's right on the day. It's to do with where the sun is, and ultimately, it's very much to do with the kind of shot you're going to be making.
They're both about storytelling. They're both about working with design, music, actors, scripts and story to bring about a really fulfilling and entertaining experience. It's just a different medium. They obviously have quite different nuances, and I was amazed at how easily Neil managed to draw out the film-specific nuances coming from so many years working in theatre. He seemed to be really natural in the way he worked with the camera, which is probably the main difference between film and theatre, and really understood how to get close to the actors with the camera, how to keep the camera moving, and how to frame the images, obviously working closely with our DOP, so that the film has a visual coherence and beauty, which is not really on the forefront of your mind in a play, because you don't frame shots in the same way.
I have this process in the theatre where, which is based on collaboration, that everyone who is working on a project kind of gathers together and is all kind of equally part of the, you make a family really, and everyone has the ability, or should feel the freedom to contribute to this kind of beautiful opportunity that we all have to tell this story. And so I did what I do in the theatre of, on the first day of rehearsals, of gathering everyone who's working on the project together in a room, sort of sitting in a circle really, and reading the script. Essentially, I discovered that what for me had always been a kind of a process of rehearsal, where through discussion with everyone who's in the scene, you kind of find out what a scene's about, and you kind of get deeper into it, was not the right way for Heath and for Abby. Of course we talked about stuff a lot, but the best way of working with Heath was individually, like actually just me with Heath. I made this speech on that first day. Abby sort of asked a question, which was how free were she and Heath to sort of improvise around the dialogue. And I made this little speech about that Luke and I had spend 5 years on the script, that I felt that I had a good sense of rhythm, that Luke was a poet, and that the dialogue in this document was extremely kind of honed, and that a slightly patronising speech, I think, that it wasn't like television where things are written quickly, that this was highly kind of rhythmically considered dialogue, that the humour there's a lot of humour in it that is very much related to the rhythm, and so that they should definitely learn this dialogue rather than approach it kind of in some kind of proximate way.
In the realm of film, I learnt that you don't have to fret, because good actors will carry a lot of the burden of what you were fretting about. What I learnt in very practical terms was that we kept writing stuff which got cut. Heath said to Neil early in the film, "You guys have written a good script here, but there's too many words in it. And you're going to find that when you get to the edit room, a lot of them are going to go." And Neil, early in the piece, Neil kind of said, okay, thank you, but I still want you to do this scene the way it's written. But a lot of the time Heath was right. And for me that was an amazing learning curve.
And we did deal with it in the edit. There are scenes that, like the last scene in the film, there was a huge amount of dialogue when they sit down at the table, and it was by getting rid of it that the scene really works, because it's what they were playing between the two of them that was incredible, and much richer than the words that we'd given them. Margaret Fink was saying from the word go, don't be afraid of silence.
Well, the genesis of the film really is that I was attracted to Luke's novel, Candy. I read it and I recognised a film writer in Luke, and I thought, well, I want to work with him. And I subsequently gave the book to Neil Armfield to introduce him to Luke's talent, and Neil said, why don't we do Candy? And the opportunity to work with Neil again was so great that that was the beginning of the film.
The process of writing this screenplay was trying to make it as essential and as spare as possible, without sacrificing complexity and richness. But the book presents immense challenges for adaptation to screenplay. The book is so, it's driven by this amazing kind of momentum, but we are only inside the narrator's head the whole time. More than that, I think, the way in which the whole thing is really just layers of episodes, and you sort of divine a structure through that. The screenplay had to go quite a long way away from the book in order to find its own logic.
When I wrote the first ever draft of the script, before Neil had even come on board, it was 140 pages long, and it was wall-to-wall voiceover, kind of Goodfellas style. And I kind of just imported a lot of stuff from the novel into the voiceover. That was my naivety, that was my method, whatever. There was a bare bones of a story there, but we set ourselves the task of steadily removing the voiceover over the years that followed. We figured it was like erecting a house, and the voiceover is the scaffolding that you're using as you're going up the floors and building this house. And then finally you have to remove the scaffolding to reveal the beauty of the house that you've built. So that's the task we set ourselves. And in the end, it was a luxury and a pleasure just to layer in these. There's not too much in there, but there's that little sense of finally coming to the realization, yes, this is Dan's film. There was for a while we were like, it's neutral, it's shared. But we decided, no, it's still the same, it's the viewpoint thing, same as the novel. His film of her. And that little layering in of voiceover just helped to fine-tune that balance and sit it right, sit the story right.
I wasn't trying to wreck Candy's life. I was trying to make mine better.